Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the First World War. I'm Mike B, and today we're going to be doing a fun video. This is going to be going through the lists of casualties by numbers, by country, on the Entente powers of the Allies in the First World War. Now there's a lot more little countries than you think that were involved, so this list is a bit expansive. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go in ascending, or would that be ascending or descending? I'm going to go from smallest number to biggest number. So we're going to start with just basically how many troops were mobilized by that country, and then I'm going to go towards the total casualties. Well, I'll go to killed and casualties, because that's wounded, and POWs are also counted within the total casualty count. But losses, death, that's something to be mentioning. So, and then I'll go on to the ending is it gives you the percentage of forces mobilized that were actually casualties, period, which for some countries is astounding. So anyway, this is going to be the Entente powers. I'll do the Central powers in another video coming up, so stay tuned for that. If you have already seen that one and you're coming here from there, thanks for watching. If you haven't seen that one, I'll be posting that in a few days, but you can go and check that out on my channel too. So we're going to start with Montenegro, right? That's a small country in Eastern Europe. Well, yeah, kind of southeastern Europe. And they mobilized 50,000 troops. This is from Britannica.com, by the way. This is an article about World War I killed and wounded and missing, all that stuff. So you can go Google that and go on Britannica's website. So Montenegro had 50,000 troops mobilized. They lost 3,000 killed, 20,000 total casualties, and so that'd be about 40% of their entire mobilized force. That's a pretty substantial number, 40% casualty rate, right? But that's not the highest one. So nowadays, if we had a 40% casualty rate, oh my God, it would be like a disaster. So just think of a country that small mobilizing 50,000 people, and they lose 3,000 dead, and then they have 20,000 casualties total for 40% of their total mobilized force. So it may not seem like a big number compared to other ones, but percentage-wise, that's pretty bad. This also, I don't believe this list separates disease like the Spanish flu with the American casualties and stuff like that. Oops, spoiler alert, the Americans were involved in the First World War on the Entente side. But I don't think it does that. So when I say casualties and dead, that number is probably included in there. So just so we know. All right, I'll keep moving and get some more momentum. Portugal mobilized 100,000 personnel. They lost 7,222 killed and 33,291 casualties total. So that'd be 33.3%, so about exactly a third of their mobilized forces were casualties in the First World War. Again, that's a pretty high number from a country that A, wasn't that big, and B, didn't mobilize a lot of troops, but that casualty rate was extremely high. Greece mobilized 230,000 troops. They lost 5,000 dead and 27,000 casualties total, but they have an 11.7% casualty rate, so that's one of the lower ones you're going to find. It's still a pretty high casualty rate, but about 12% is not terribly high when you're talking about the First World War in general as a whole. So, yeah, Greece, 230,000 mobilized, 27,000 total casualties, about 12% total rate. Belgium mobilized 267,000 personnel, killed in action, 13,716, and then 93,000 total casualties, 93,061. For a total of 34.9 or 35% casualty rate for the Belgian forces. Also pretty high. Anywhere above 25%, even in that war, it's like, okay, this is not a good thing. Like, this is not a good number. Okay, so we got Belgium. Serbia mobilized 707,343 troops. They lost 45,000 killed in action and 331,106 total casualties in the First World War, for a total of 46.8% casualty rate. Now we're starting to climb up into numbers that are really getting ridiculous. So this is almost half of their mobilized forces were casualties in one way or the other. Casualty means wounded, captured, disease was counted in there, and all that stuff like that. So killed counts too. That's a huge percentage of casualties, right? When you're talking almost 50%. But not to be outdone, Romania, who mobilized 750,000 troops, lost 335,706 dead, KIA, and a total of 535,706 casualties total. They have one of the highest death rates from a smaller country that was involved in the First World War. That is insane. So they mobilized 750, and about half of those, were killed, done, not just a casualty. So they ended up having a total of 71.4% casualty rate in the First World War. Now we're talking some catastrophic, cataclysmic numbers, which is why this war was so incredibly awful and just terrible. Now, when I say these numbers, it's almost impossible for the human brain to comprehend that many people in one area, right? So, 750,000 people is the size of like a bigger metro area in the United States, like fairly big suburbs included. Not like New York, but like we'll say, God, I don't even know. Because Minneapolis, St. Paul is not that many people, so it's more than that. We're mobilized, so they went over there. Now take half of those people and just kill them. They're dead, never coming back. And that's the kind of numbers we're looking at. And that's a small country, relatively speaking. So I'm just trying to tell you that it's hard for me to comprehend, so I can imagine for you guys just watching the video. Japan, they mobilized 800,000 troops, okay? Now, I'll get into a video about Japan. They weren't necessarily fighting as much as the other forces. They did mobilize a lot of people, but only 300 deaths, 907 wounded, 3 missing or were captured. And I'm just reading this one out because it's so low. And 1,210 total casualties. 0.2% casualty rate. Yep, all right, we'll cover Japan in a different one. All right, here we go with the United States. The United States mobilized 4,355,000 troops in about a year, actually, from 1917 to 1919, basically. 116,516 deaths. Now, I know that number is actually about 50-50 between Spanish flu and or disease and actual combat deaths. I'll do another video kind of on that and why it was counted that way, but the U.S. got hit really hard with Spanish flu, especially people going over there on troop ships and people coming back because you're in such tight quarters, but again, that's another video. So we ended up with 323,018 casualties total in the First World War, and that's just in over a year, right? Just over a year of the United States being involved. So 8.1% of our forces were casualties. Not a very high percentage, but again, we were only involved for a little bit over a year, about a year actually fighting too. So take that into consideration. Now, Italy mobilized 5,615,000 troops. Of those, 650,000 were killed in action. Total casualties, 2,197,000 for a total of 39.1% casualty rate. That's pretty substantial as well. Again, anything over like 25%, even at that time, is insane. So 40% roughly casualty rate for Italy. France, 8,410,000 people mobilized. Now, for a country that's not that big at that time, that is a lot of people that were mobilized. Of that, 1,357,800 were dead, killed in action. With, I'll just read these casualty rates I'll read the complete ones for the next couple countries, because these are the most astounding. Of that, too, 4,266,000 wounded in action. That is a huge number. Right there, that's insane. So I cannot believe it. Anyway, missing or captured or whatever, 537,000 total. Total of 6,160,800. Now, if you remember, I said they mobilized 8.4 million. 6.1 million were casualties. So that brings the total to 73.3% casualty rate for all French personnel involved in the First World War. And this is military losses. This isn't even civilian losses. I don't know if I mentioned that. So this is insane, right? Now we go to the British Empire, who actually mobilized more troops than France did, which is very interesting, but the numbers are also very interesting. So 8,904,467 British troops for the British Expeditionary Force were mobilized. Of that, 908,371 were killed in action. A good chunk of those were in 1916 in the Battle of the Somme, which is insane. 1 day, or 3 days, was it? And then anyway, I got off on a tangent. Wounded, 2,090,212. Missing in action, captured, etc., 191,652. For a total of 3,190,235 casualties. 35.8% casualty rate. And that's one of the lower ones for the people that mobilize the most. That's insane. That's a huge rate. Again, it's hard to fathom this. Now, who always wins in the losses department in the 20th century specifically? Russia. This one is insane. This is the most twisted, for the Entente powers, this is the most twisted, ridiculous numbers I possibly can tell you. They mobilized about 12 million troops, right? 1.7 million were killed in action, 4.95 were wounded in action, 4.95 million, I'm sorry, and 2.5 million were captured or missing or just gone. That is a huge number of missing. That's the biggest one. That's just about as much as the rest of all the Entente missing and wounded. Actually, might be a little bit more combined. So the Russians missing and wounded 2.5 million. Now, I think there's a reason for that. I think in 1917 there was a lot of people who deserted and were just kind of disappeared. But that's just speculation. That's my opinion. It's hyperbole. It's not a fact. I can do another video after I do some research to figure out why that number is so high, but I just found that stunning. Anyway, the worst part is 76.3% casualty rate. So they take the cake for the Entente powers, the next highest being France with 73.3, which is not that big of a difference really, but Russia fielded way more troops and they lost a lot more. So 76.3% of all of your military forces were casualties. That's horrific. And that's going to do some damage, which is why some things went down in 1917 in Russia, because it was just a disaster for them. So anyway, these are the kind of numbers we're talking about in the First World War. Again, these are just military, just from a few countries that were on one side of it. On the next video that I do with the Central Powers, there's some numbers that are going to surprise you even more than this that you probably didn't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them if I can. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to BS you with false information that I just think. I'll just say I don't know. Anyway, again, this is from Encyclopedia Britannica's website. You can type in World War I, killed and wounded, and all that stuff, and it'll come up. But I just figured I'd share this with you to kind of lay it out there and go through the mental process of trying to comprehend these numbers. It's just almost impossible to do that. And I just can't even imagine that many people. It's 12 million people is like, what is that, like the population of LA? Let me see really quick. Of LA County. Oh, LA is only 4 million people. So you times that by 3, times LA by 3, that many people, mobilize them for a conflict, and you lose 76.3% of those to casualties. As a casualty. That's just kind of the numbers. If you've never been to LA, it's a freaking weird place and there's a lot of people. But anyway, so that's the video on this. I hope you enjoyed. I mean, like, not darkly enjoyed, oh yeah, all those people died, but I hope you enjoyed kind of the information and kind of me just breaking it down and giving a percentage and stuff like that, because yeah, when people say World War I was terrible, it really was. In the most real sense, the most literal sense, it was awful. And I'll do another video in the future too on civilian deaths from both, or I could probably make that into one video because there's a lot less countries that were directly affected. But I'll get to that too, civilian deaths in the First World War, after I do the Central Powers in the next video. So thanks for watching, everybody. Consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Support helps me fund things in this channel like props and things like that for other videos. I like tangible history. That's how I learn, so I try to present you with as tangible history as you can get, with me actually showing you the item, or trying to help you learn a subject through tangible history. So Patreon really helps with that. It's really easy for me to use. It's easy for me to be in contact with my supporters, and your support does matter. You guys vote on what I actually get for the channel stuff. I don't just go out and spend the money the way I see fit, so you guys get a voice in that. So consider checking that out. Link in the description to that. I will stop rambling. Consider checking out the other videos on the channel. And yeah, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, because that actually matters in the algorithm now. So thanks for watching. Ooh, almost made it through the whole video. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.